Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. Tameshiwari, board breaking, or brick breaking, we're breaking. Do not confuse the word Tameshiwari with makiwara. We don't hit a makiwari or a maku-wari. We hit a makiwara, and we train and condition our punch. When we break, it's called Tameshiwari. Okay. I posted on my Facebook page just a little while ago a samurai iaido instructor talking about how test cutting with a sword has nothing to do with actual samurai combative skills, mostly because of how big and wide a swing you have to take, which then leaves you vulnerable to the other guy if he had a sword, as opposed to cutting and keeping the point of your sword forward toward the opponent. If I do that, if I come out of scabbard and cut and keep my sword forward instead of swinging all the way through to cut the full mat, I may not get all the way through the mat. But in real life, in combatives, even if I go halfway through the arm or halfway through the neck, I don't have to cut it all the way off. Test cutting, which is where this came from, was primarily done by beginners and novices purely to test the sharpness and strength of the blade, nothing to do with combative skill. And so in the same way, the cutting, tameshigiri, of cutting in iaido is usually done with big, wide, arcing swings, which you don't want to do in combat any more than in boxing. I want to be swinging like this, as opposed to keeping my moves in and tight. And so he does quite a lengthy video of that, and I'll link it down here below as well in the description. But the same thing applies to karate. I went to a karate school a few years back, and they had one of their little breaking stands, and I went to do the break. Now, I was the demonstration breaker for my Kempo organization for years. I broke all sorts of things. I competed in the Western Regional Taekwondo in '92. I beat 300 other guys. I was the gold medalist in breaking for the whole Western region of Taekwondo. I've broken things. And I've done it with that big, wide swinging, like the samurai cut. But anybody with muscle and weight can do that. Jesse Enkamp took some boards out to the public and had women and guys breaking it. You can get a cheaper, easier board to break. There are a lot of ways to do it. And as in and of itself, has nothing to do with karate. So how did it become connected, or how can we reconnect it? The way I do that is by putting my actual kata, my actual techniques into motion and doing the breaking. So you'll see this all the time. Who in the world in public violence is going to stand there while you do all this? Okay? If you're going to break something, it's because he attacked, he's punching, he's going to come right at you. Okay? So the whole setup of the thing. I can do this all day, or I can get into a power position and make a big, huge swing and break whatever it's going to be. Or you can get the big blocks of ice and get a guy that weighs 300 pounds to jump in the air and land on the ice and break the ice. It has nothing to do with karate. But if I've been practicing makiwara correctly for years, if I've been practicing my technique correctly for years, then I should be able to do, I'm going to do on this side, and we'll do the ichiban again, okay? So Max is going to stand as if he was in his low block, ready to step forward and punch. He's going to step forward as if he had punched, and I'm going to do Seidokan Ichiban. Okay, Yakusoku number 1. Hey! And I do my technique. Now, I didn't have to stand there for 3 hours and set that up. How many boards could he hold? Can I set it up on a brace or a bracket? Whatever. Another thing that I saw was years ago, and you can look it up, a video of Chuck Norris called Yellow-Faced Tiger, and he plays the villain. It's a Chinese movie in San Francisco, dubbed in. He's got a deep voice. It's hilarious. But he does the Tangsudo version of Pinyan Godan, and within the context of doing the kata, he gets to a certain point, and he then breaks the board while doing the kata. And I thought, that makes some sense. Now I'm doing actual karate moves, and the board just happens to be there as a way to test if I have my balance and my power in my karate moves, okay? Same thing with, let's go this way, and point it to the side like that. There you go. And he's going to step in again, and this time I do Seidokan Niban. Hey! Side step. Punch. I didn't plant well. But the idea being, and my knee's busted, I was going to go on with 3 and the others. What about 4? Well, I change it to this punch. Okay? Hey, step here, change it to the punch instead of the spear. So I'm basically just doing the techniques that I would normally do. Now, I may not start out with that. I may start out with and get used to it and learn to break and learn to hit hard enough to break the thing and set it on something stable rather than on somebody moving, which is a lot more difficult to do. But when we put breaking in context with our karate techniques, now it begins to make some more sense. Let's do, let me have you over on this side for this. We'll do pinyan shoran, and you're going to stand facing this way with the board like that. Okay? So we're doing pinyan shoran, and I'm just doing the kata, and he happens to be there. Then I can set the board here, break it with a kick this way. Come here, break it with a knife hand, and set up boards wherever in the course of the kata you want, and break them. Okay? What is it we're breaking? I've seen people bake boards so they're brittle like balsa wood. I've seen people cut a scoring mark underneath bricks and still break their hand on them. I saw this guy, a video the other day, setting it up, doing all this breathing and prep, and he hit it and had a stack of boards and nothing moved, and the adjudicator pulled it out and checked them. Nothing was broken, except this guy's hand was shaped like this, and then it showed an after with cuts and sutures across the back of his hand where he had to have the bones in his hand all repinned. We don't want to do that. So what is it that we're going to break? Well, you can start with easy stuff. This is about the same as a regular, went to the hardware store, bought a 1-inch pine board with no knots in it. That's about the same. I have others that are harder. We have little practice tiles. You can buy all sorts of things to practice with. But the idea is to have whatever it is give you some resistance as you do your karate moves. So here's how I would do the build-up for this, okay? Go like this with it, okay? At first, I might have my beginner students just practice and do the setup and get ready like you see in the demos. But that's really nothing more than a confidence builder to say, oh, look, I can break that. That's all that's for, okay? It takes a bigger, wider swing. Oh, I was saying that I went to this other school and I went to do the break and I couldn't break the number of boards I was used to. And the little kid, said, yeah, because you're not doing a big, wide swing like this. And he did his big, old, wide swing and broke the boards. Yes, if you hit hard enough, you can do that. But his technique was not a karate technique. It was just, I'm going to hit real hard, where I was trying to actually use the confines of the motion as I would use them in an actual technique. So that's the difference. So at first, yes, start with that big, wide movement that's non-karate, that's purely about strength, purely about getting confidence to hit the target. But at a certain point, if we want to connect the concept of Tameshiwari with karate, we need to do it within the context of our existing karate movements. That bridges the gap between breaking and karate application. Again, I'll link the samurai video down below, similar concept. I do require breaking at the brown belt level for my students, but at the beginner portion. So if I'm having max test, feel like doing one? Sure. Okay. If I'm having, what do you want to do? Punch, hammer, elbow, straight punch? Okay. So if I'm having max test for his brown belt, which is what this third Q level video is about, I'm going to have simply a held board, and he's going to break the board. That will be a part of his test. As he gets more comfortable and familiar and practices, he will then do what I was demonstrating a moment ago, the yakusoku techniques, the kata, a bunkai movement, a kata with multiple positioned boards around. And you'll see this in breaking demonstrations, thanks, sir, where they have a variety of breaks, but it's still all about set up and jump and move, and it's not ever in the context of actual combatives. And that's the connection I'm looking for with Tameshiwari for karate. Be able to do it, number one. Secondly, put it within the context of your kata or your self-defense techniques and do it without all of the extraneous showmanship stuff. then it can be an actual test for your karate skills. Thank you for joining. Hopefully that was instructive, informative, useful, something you can apply, take away. And until next week, as always, let's keep practicing.